What's going on? It's your boy Sermon at Sermon's Domain on Twitter. The other day, the game teased on Instagram that he has begun working on his final album titled Westside Story. He teased it by showing us a picture with Kendrick Lamar, which shows us that Kendrick is going to be a guest feature on the album. Now that's exciting news because the game and Kendrick are always delivering heat. Dating back to The City on the Red album, like the game spazzed on that, but Kendrick went like supernova on that record. I covered this subject a little bit back in December when the game announced the album title, but now I wanted to have a full-blown discussion. Should the game retire from rap? And before we get to actually answering that question, you kind of have to look at his career. With Westside Story, the final album, he'll have 9 albums in his discography. And that's not counting mixtapes or the soundtracks that he put out last year. So there's a lot of game music over the years. There's never been like a shortage. It feels like every single year he's put out something to some degree. So he's had one hell of a career just off of his discography alone. He's also, not for nothing, one of the nicest from the West Coast. He is someone who can deliver quality after quality after quality. I don't think there's many people that will argue that the documentary isn't his best album, but I will say that he has at least 3 albums that can almost touch it. I would argue that Jesus Piece, Documentary 2.5, and maybe the Red album, I think, was the other one that I was thinking of. Those ones can rival the documentary. But ultimately, the documentary comes on top. But there's not many artists who can say that throughout their career they've had so many close attempts to their best album. You have to also look back at what the game meant for the West Coast. Back in 2005, there wasn't many artists that were stepping up. It's not like today where you have Kendrick Lamar, Schoolboy Q, YG, Dom Kennedy, Nipsey Hussle, and the list goes on and on. You have all these names that are known partly because of the internet. But back then it was like the game was the only guy on the mainstream that was coming up. Like you had your established artists like Snoop and Dre and the other people that were around at that time too, but the game was emerging and he really held the West Coast on his back for a couple years before other people started to, pop up, before the internet started to play a bigger role in music. So when you factor in all of that, the game really has had a very storied career. He's had one that will go down for the ages. You will remember the game years from now in the same way that we still talk about, Ice Cube, even though Ice Cube has pretty much been removed from music for years. He drops an album maybe once upon a time. You know that Ice Cube's focus is on acting and producing these movies now. Which brings me to my next point. A lot of times when rappers retire or they scale back on making music, it's often because their business ventures are a lot bigger than the music. So, like I said, Ice Cube, he's more known today as being a filmmaker and an actor than he is a rapper. LL Cool J, he's another person that's an actor. And not to take away anything from their music career, but this is how they are looked at nowadays. You don't say LL Cool J the rapper, you would say LL Cool J the actor, because he does that more than he does rap. And when he does rap, and this is no disrespect, it doesn't have the same impact as before. And so I was trying to research a little bit about the game and see what he does outside of music. And the only thing that I came up with was that he co-owns a dispensary. And that's a very lucrative business if he keeps it up and running for many years to come. But I didn't see anything else that was like incredibly amazing. Like E40 has his own wine and liquor, and Chameleonaires in the tech industry, like the tech world out in Silicon Valley, but the game doesn't have too much. And this is not to say that he's hurting for money or will be, but I was just thinking, like, what does life after rap for the game mean? What is he going to be doing? Is he going to try to build up and coming talent? Is he stepping away from the music and just going to sit back and be a regular person, enjoy his life? Like, I'm just curious what he wants to do after he drops his final album. So now we get to the question, should the game retire from rap? I think it's an answer that is very subjective depending on who you talk to, and I don't have like one way answer for it. So obviously you can say, yeah, he's had such an amazing career and he doesn't need to go on and on. He's retiring at like the perfect time. You know, he's about to hit his 40s soon and he never really had a chance to fall off, in my opinion. Like, he's put out some bad music here and there, but for the most part, he's always delivered on his albums, on his mixtapes, in guest features and all of that. So a part of me wants to say, if he can keep delivering this level of quality, keep going. But the other part of me is like, you don't want to keep going and risk having like a bad album or more bad albums or bad music in general, because then that looks at, it kind of tarnishes your legacy. Like, people on the internet are so critical. They're like, oh, this guy dropped this album and it's bad, and they forget everything that he was doing prior to that. Like, they look at it like it really hurt his legacy, and whether or not it did is another subjective answer. I do think that after giving your life to hip-hop for well over a decade, that you do deserve a proper retirement. And I think the game with Westside Story is going to go all out. Now, I'll probably save my expectations for the album for a later discussion, because that's something entirely different to discuss. But I did want to talk about this subject now. And I think that I've come to the conclusion that I don't have, I don't really have an answer one way or the other. I'm in the middle. I can say yes for these points. I can say no for these points. Now I want to know what you think. Do you feel like the game should retire after Westside Story, or should he keep going? Talk to me in the comment section below. Then like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, share the video. Follow me on Twitter at @SermonsDomain, and as always, thank you for your time. I appreciate you for watching, and until next time, peace.